Well, I think we may even make a start.
Yeah.
People have, so if that would be all right, Rik and Jessica, we may make a start and work from there. Thank you.
Sounds like a plan. Let me set her up.
And I knew this would happen. As soon as I started, my cat has come here, so she is going to potentially disrupt the proceedings. So, everybody, thank you very much. Welcome tonight. It is evening in Australia. It's been a long day for all of us. So I hope tonight it's a chance for us to listen and have some experiences from our colleagues in the Netherlands and Europe. My name's Lawrie Kirk. I think I've met most of you. If I haven't, welcome. I'm one of two DASA ambassadors. I live in Canberra. DASA ambassador is a voluntary position, which I've had for I think it's nearly 7 years. And I've seen DASA evolve. And tonight, I wanted to put together a group of people who really are specialists. It wasn't an open invite, but I wanted to have people who represent our ecosystem. Just on some logistics, thanks, Jessica. We will be recording this. You can use the comment section. Already there's a few Lawrie Kirks, so you can write as much as you like and it'll be attributed to Lawrie Kirk and the questions. If there are any questions, please do that. Jessica will be monitoring that. And if there are additional questions, there's an email there, but all of you would have my contacts. Please feel free to have a chat with me. I already have a couple of follow-up meetings. There are some people who have registered and not been able to attend. But you'll be getting the slide pack, and I look forward to those who are here tonight that I'm following up. Next slide. Thanks, Jessica. Also welcome, and I just want to do a voice check there. I'll be speaking for a little bit, but our main speaker is Rik Farenhorst, the CEO of DASA. Rik, just checking your voice level there.
Hopefully loud and clear. Good to be here.
Loud and clear. Excellent. We're very fortunate to have Rik. Rik came to DASA as our CEO 2 years ago. It's great to have him here tonight. I'd also like to acknowledge Sukbar, who's here as our chair of DASA. Lovely to see you and thank you, Sukbar. I promise not to mention cricket at all tonight. All right? So we'll see how it goes. But it's lovely for me to be here to present to you, my colleagues in Australia, how DASA has evolved. Rik will be speaking and sharing some lessons that he's learned. Rik really is a leader in digital transformation. In 2009, he did his PhD on architectural knowledge management, software engineering, but when you look through his career, he's applied that knowledge. In 2016, he was on the DASA board and has seen DASA evolve as well. He was the CIO of Transavia Airlines, who have been around for 60 years. Now, if you think about wanting to have a digital transformation in a business like an airline, where you're running the business at the same time in a highly regulated environment, Rik really does know how to apply theory to knowledge. And you can see that coming through on the evolution of DASA. Thanks, Jessica. A little bit about setting the scene. I'm going to talk briefly about what I think digital transformation in Australia. Then Rik's going to share some lessons learned. Now, tonight we have a broad array of people. We have people who are subject matter experts. We have people who are trainers and maybe not this discipline, but we're also pleased that we have another member of what I call the DASA ecosystem, the people who provide skilled labour and contracting and consulting sources. So it's important to share with you what knowledge could be out there for you to upskill and ensure your contractors and your consultants are getting the best advice. Now, as we go through some of the guidelines that Rik's had, you'll see that you may say, oh, that's good. I knew that. It will be affirmation of some of the processes that you're using have also been successfully done in Europe. We'll talk a bit about the ecosystem and a suggestion that I have at the end. Thanks, Jessica. Australia has a digital transformation strategy, and some of you may or may not realise. If you didn't realise that, then that's probably a great take-home for you tonight. What caught me, this was put around about 2 years ago, And what really caught me, it came at the same time when we were asked in working groups to rethink and what could the DASA, where it was really just focusing on one area of DevOps, how could we take on digital transformation? The two things that really struck me in the vision for our country were those last, through world-class data and digital capabilities. And when I read that, and just the next slide, please, Jessica, it made me realise that I was in a very fortunate position. I'd already been with DASA and seen it evolve for 4 years. And I realised that some of the stories and from this community, DASA has over 40,000 community members. We've got 100 members and partners. Over 20,000 people have certified. And I realised that some of the experience that you're going to hear from Rik tonight is from real examples in the financial sectors and other business sectors in European companies. And on the left, you can see that the Australian strategy is really wanting to know how we can improve. On the left, we have 5 missions, or really you could say they're pillars of what we're doing. And on the right, the implementation plan. I'd urge you to have a look at that. The next slide, please. Now, you're not meant to read this. I know I probably upset a graphic designer, but I'm not meant to read it at all. What I want you to do is, when you go to that site that I've accessed, is do have a look at how the Australian government is measuring the national transformation change. Often I've had said, I don't know how to measure my digital transformation. Have a look through how the Australian government is measuring both its strategy and implementation plan. And that's really important. But on the right, you'll also see something that's on that web page, the Australian Digital Inclusion Index. And that's just a snapshot. There's about 8 or 10 fields there where there's some really interesting data. One of the things you need to know when you're either consulting or training or providing is, where is the market? What does the market need? I urge you to have a look at that for some really good data to see where your uniqueness can fulfill. In addition to that, only yesterday, the Mandarin published a survey results of 1,800 people last September and October. 52% of them were millennials and Gen Xers, and there were some very specific digital needs that they had. Once again, we've got a lot of data that you can use to focus on where your uniqueness can be to help. I think that's interesting, that to set the scene, that where I believe, and I'm very fortunate that I see that on my left hand, I can see a lot of experience and guidance and certifications and real application in Europe. And on Australia, we have a desire and a national strategy. I hope tonight that you can see some of the information and share some of the knowledge and experience that Rik has gained. And lastly, throughout that, as part of this, you'll see a reference to AI, and Rik will cover that. But we really have looked at our portfolio and brought in new products, but not just an add-on product, really making how can AI be used across all the things that we do in digital transformation. Thank you, Rik. Thanks, Jessica. So a simple question to lead you with, Rik. Why is it so hard? Rik, there's that for an easy question. So look, I'd like to hand over to Rik now, who'll lead this session. Thanks, Rik.
Yeah, thanks, Lawrie. And yeah, you would wonder, why is it so hard? Let's zoom in on that before we deep dive on lessons I can share from Europe and other parts of the world. And of course, I'll explain a bit about DASA and our ecosystem. By the way, we will share the slides with you all, and there are some additional slides we'll not be able to present in this session to give some further background information. And if you have any questions or feedback, we'd love to catch up with you one-on-one afterwards. So why is digital transformation so hard? I think we know it's no longer optional, but we see many organizations struggle to execute it effectively. And there are all kinds of reasons listed here. If you're an IT service provider or working there, as some of you do, you face increasing demands from clients who expect you to lead transformation efforts, but most of you still operate in a relatively traditional reactive mode, doing secondment services, having experts who can do a role, but not necessarily lead whole transformation and complex transformation programs. If you're in a government organization, for example, in IT teams, you see that those team members work with complex bureaucratic systems and structures. They have to manage legacy systems. But at the same time, they try to meet rising citizen expectations for, well, more and more seamless digital services, like the ambition of the Australian government also highlighted. And to make things worse, I think both groups, either service providers or government and enterprises, they are dealing with a shortage of skilled professionals. They have often inefficient internal processes and, like, which is a human thing, I guess, some cultural resistance to change, inherent resistance to change, do things quite differently. So without the right guidance, transformations typically remain slow and fragmented, and they fail to deliver the real and the intended impact. That's what making digital transformation so hard. So on the next slide, the good news would be that, of course, you're not alone. This is not something that applies to your organization, but it's all across the globe. We see in a global survey, we found that 77% of enterprises are dealing with digital talent shortages, making it difficult to also build but also scale transformation initiatives. But at the same time, 72% of all customer interactions are now digital first. So this means that you need to keep up with all the trends and expectations, otherwise you risk falling behind. And we've also surveyed many CIOs in public finance domains, especially. Also, Gartner has various reports published about this. And some key challenges that are often highlighted include on the one hand, the silos that still exist between business and IT departments. Secondly, outdated processes and ways of working. And thirdly, all kinds of governance complexities that hinder, let's say, the disruptions and the transformations that you would like to do to work more effectively together. The good news is that there are also quite a few organizations nowadays who have successfully tackled these challenges. And they have adopted more structural transformation approaches. And they didn't rely on ad hoc initiatives, but they also used, let's say, proven frameworks to guide their transformation journey. And we'll zoom in on some examples of those frameworks later on. And on the next slide, I would like to emphasize that it's getting harder and harder for IT and business leaders alike to actually keep up with trends and innovations, because we live in a so-called VUCA world. It stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And this makes basically our world changing faster and faster, and the trends will follow up each other faster and faster. And you can see it almost as a constant. The only thing, or the best thing you can do as an enterprise leader, is to make yourself not only responsive to change, but organize yourself in such a way that you can benefit from these changes. And this is what we at DASA call creating a high-performance digital organization, so that you are not just from a technology standpoint, but also from people, process, leadership, culture perspective, are actually benefiting from these changes, because we don't know what will be the next new hype or trend that you could benefit from, but you create the opportunity to benefit maximally from it. And this is important, and many leaders feel the pressure, the heat is on. As you see in this visualization, there's an increasing demand from citizens, from users, from stakeholders to increase the speed and the quality of all the digital capabilities. And at the same time, you have to deal with often what we call the technical debt that has been accrued over the past decades. And this is a very complex balance to navigate. And on the next slide, I'd like to highlight what's at stake. It makes sense, but it's important to reiterate, I think, because it's important to realize what will happen if you don't act. For government organizations and enterprises, if you have outdated services and slow modernization, it can lead to all kinds of inefficiencies that will directly impact your citizens, your businesses, etc. And then, as simply Australia's strong and highlighted digital transformation vision will not become a reality. If you're an IT service provider, on the other hand, the risk is to become a more commodity provider rather than a strategic transformation partner for your clients. So if you fail to develop modern capabilities, you risk losing contracts to more, let's say, agile competitors in the market. So the cost of doing nothing is greater, I would say, than the cost of doing a transformation. And with that being said, I'd like to share, like Lawrie highlighted in the opening, a few lessons we learned over the years, over the decades, from a DASA perspective, we have the luxury to talk to many enterprise leaders, listen to them, accrue case studies, have them present their war stories on various podiums and events that we organize. And this is a summary of important key lessons that often are shared and are highlighted. And while many of those leaders interviewed and used as input to these lessons work in finance and public sectors, I would say the lessons are rather domain and sector agnostic, and most likely also geography independent. But love to hear from you whether you feel this also resonates to the Australia context, of course. Let's go over them one by one. On the next slide, I'd like to start with the first lesson, and it's about organizational structures. Many of you, I guess, are familiar with the term culture eats strategy for breakfast, right? It's a nice phrase that helps emphasize that although strategy is very important, instilling and cultivating the right organizational culture is important, crucial even. But what is a much less well-known quote is the one, culture follows structure. And it's important to realize that the way you organize yourself as an organization dictates what kind of culture can grow there. So it's important to focus on this part. And on the next slide, we'll start highlighting with some good practices that you often see organizations investing in. I would always say start small and start on the team level, and don't go for enterprise-wide initiatives and programs right away. But on the team level, already quite some benefits can be gained. We have lots of research from Google, who did a large program around 500 teams, if I remember correctly, and they came with key indicators for what constitutes a high-performance team, psychological safety being the most important of them. And there are a few other things mentioned. And I think there are all kinds of other offers in the various disciplines from a leadership, psychology, team building perspective that are very good to take into account, and they're also part of our DASA body of knowledge. For example, Daniel Pink with his autonomy, mastery, purpose philosophy is also something that you can easily add to the mix. And I think creating high-performance teams and continuously investing in those is important, especially now that we're also on the verge of involving ourselves more and more with AI. I think the next trend would be something that I call agentic teams or hybrid teams with agentic AI. We all have some experience, I guess, with generative and agentic AI, but this might be a game changer going forward in helping teams to realize much more in less time, for example. And this will also further help to get the productivity and the performance of these teams, not in a 10x manner, but maybe a 100x manner. This is on the team level a very good start to think of how do I set up the teams? How do people work together effectively? If you then scale on the next slide, of course you stumble upon all kinds of frameworks you can consider to implement in your organization. There are many around with all their pros and cons. The main takeaway I'd like to share with you would be, please don't copy paste or implement a scaling framework just for the sake of it. Because each organization has its own business strategy, its own maturity, its own ambitions, its own, let's say, specific habits and cultural elements. And this needs to be adapted to whatever setup you choose to focus on. Often, to get faster and to get to higher performance levels, it's more about removing structures and to stimulate more entrepreneurship and innovation. But with that being said, it's important to define for yourself what would be an operating model, an organizational structure that you feel also between business and IT stakeholders would realize to the best outcomes. And this is an important subject that should be part of any digital transformation, in my humble opinion. But the importance of leadership to actually drive this and to create those conditions is crucial, which we will also see in the next lesson, because it's about leadership who shows the way, basically. And that's highlighted in this quote, because maybe you're familiar to it, but the right smell of the place is something I picked up from a nice video, which is also on YouTube. You can Google it and find it. It's an 8-minute video. I strongly recommend you to listen to it. Professor Ghoshal explains in that video the importance of organizational culture and the role leaderships can play. He makes an analogy with summer in downtown Calcutta, India, versus spring in Fontainebleau near Paris in the woods there. And the analogy goes that the energy levels in spring in those forests in Fontainebleau are much higher than downtown Calcutta in summer, which is very humid and draining the energy from most people. And the same goes for most organizations. Unfortunately, they look more like downtown Calcutta in summer than they do to Fontainebleau in spring. And that's because they create maybe not the best context for people to work. And that's highlighted on the next slide. Ideally, you focus on creating, as a leader, the right context around people. Unfortunately, many enterprises still focus a lot on constraints, compliance, control mechanisms, contracts. And I'm not saying that you can fully get rid of it. And we have had debates with agile coaches and fanboys who claim that now that you go for a new agile way of working, there are no rules anymore, there's complete freedom, and self-organizing, self-steering teams are the way to go. Well, I wouldn't go that far. There are always some freedom within a frame. There are guardrails required. But as a leader, you have the opportunity and the obligation, I would say, to focus more on things like stretch, discipline, trust, and support, to focus on creating the conditions for people to become more entrepreneurial, more innovative, to make failures and to learn from them, feel supported when needed. And there's an inherent trust that those experts know better than you as a senior leader in an organization what needs to be done. For example, to embrace a new technology, to invent a new way of working, to get your organization, your enterprise forward. And this brings us also to the third lesson, because I mentioned already entrepreneurship and innovation. This is something that leaders should also stimulate. When I reflect back on the start of DASA, I co-founded DASA in 2016. The competence model that we created at that time, one of the most surprising things for people outside DASA was that I highlighted the word courage as one of the key skill areas organizations and teams need to invest in. And courage relates a lot to daring to color outside of the lines, be proactive, challenge the status quo, experiment more, make failures because you can grow and learn from them, etc. In short, be more entrepreneurial. And there are a few ways that I would recommend organizations, whether you're a government organization or a commercial enterprise or a service provider, to stimulate entrepreneurship and innovation in your organization. So 3 of them are highlighted on the next slide. Some tactics that you can consider. The first one is basically derived from adopting McKinsey's 3 Horizons model. It's about balancing short-term, long-term opportunities and trends in innovations, not focus just on the here and now. Most of the organizations have a tendency to focus a lot on running the business and the firefighting, solving problems here and now, and forget to invest sufficiently in Horizon 2 and Horizon 3 things that will help you create new business models, create value, and remain competitive on the long run. Secondly, it's about assessing your organization's maturity with respect to certain trends. It can be AI, it can be Internet of Things, it can be cloud computing, it can be leveraging social media, all these bigger trends, blockchain. You have to assess not just your strategy and your own organizational maturity, but also how you're currently organized. And if you're equipped well to actually invest and adopt this new technology, this new innovation. Some organizations are, and they can immediately, from the current operating model with their teams, start experimenting. Others decide maybe it is so far off our current modus operandus, I'll focus on a dedicated innovation team who can lead the way, who can figure out whether this works for us, and then later I bring it to the standing organization. And this brings me to the third one on this slide. As a leader, you should always stimulate and cultivate your forerunners, your pathfinders, if you will, in innovation and entrepreneurship. So provide them with the facilitation, empower them to be masters, autonomous, and finding their purpose. for your organization and the value that comes out. This is a screenshot of the team at Transavia. I was CIO, as Lawrie said, at that airline for a number of years. And this group was responsible for disrupting existing business models, figuring out new ways to improve the customer experience, the passenger experience for our passengers. And this worked really well. Then we go to the fourth lesson. And it might be a cliche thing, but it's worth emphasizing. Many organizations have a rather traditional, outdated view, in my humble opinion, on talent management. With all these changes and things going on, like I highlighted in the previous slides, you need to often train new behavior and up and reskill your people. And you need to do this continuously. This is not a one-off thing. So a traditional one-off program, or just focusing on traditional classroom trainings or huge corporate initiatives, are often less and less suitable. You need to move to a more continuous and contextualized learning strategy and embed that in the culture and structure of your organization. And as highlighted on the next slide, this is getting more and more important because of the role AI will play. Many of you might have some experience and see this on the work floor already. Often leaders know much less than the typical employee when it comes to how to best leverage agentic and generative AI. This also relates to the cultural aspects, of course, and the leadership styles I highlighted. But understanding the impact also AI will have on the future fit workforce is very important. And please leverage this to come up with modern and sustainable strategies for talent management in your company, because then you equip yourself to be ahead of the curve and have a workforce that is also able to fully benefit from all the trends and technologies that come typically with digital transformation. And last but not least, the fifth lesson is more about the process and how to go about digital transformations. I would say it's a little bit contradictory, perhaps, if you read the title here. But on the one hand, I would say a transformation is never a one-off thing, a project or a program. It is a continuous journey. It's something that could have, let's say, specific milestones or chapters, or if you have the analogy with mountain climbing, base camps that you will visit. And you should celebrate successes over time. You should build in some agility to pivot and to reflect based on what you have learned and what you stumble across. What is the next big mountaintop to visit, to climb? At the same time, while this is making explicit that it's a journey, you should come prepared and you can manage it proactively using and leveraging tactics we know from project and program management, for example, tremendously help to not just hope that automatically your colleagues will figure out how to do things best, but to structure the findings, to build roadmaps, to measure outcomes and impact, define success, etc. So there's a combination between seeing it as a continuous journey on the one hand, but also manage it proactively at the same time. And on the next slide, I have to be honest with you, there's unfortunately not a silver bullet for such a journey. And there's no framework or playbook around that exists that you can simply copy paste and be done with it. It's more like an adventure. So on this map, there is somewhere this treasure hidden that works for you in your context with your company. And what's the best way to get there? Well, it depends on a few things. Some tactics, some good practices that would help you get there fastest are listed here. I would always invest in a group of forerunners to lead the charge, to lead the way, and to help you deal with roadblocks along the way, be inventive, work together, and build momentum also in the organization to scale things faster. Start small, fail fast, as we know from the Agile principles, but also learn from the experience, and focus on tangible business wins. Don't try to crack everything at once. Focus on different capabilities over time, but give yourself some time instead of trying to do it as a big bang. And we'll see some key capabilities and themes that DASA also believes in need to be part of a typical digital transformation journey. It's important that you, in a smart way, connect the dots and balance your investments accordingly, I would say. So if we summarize those 5 lessons before we go on, I would say the first one is really about structure enables culture. So give that a first-class citizen position in any digital transformation initiative that you are planning. Secondly, leadership is important to set the tone and create the right atmosphere for supporting innovation and entrepreneurship. Thirdly, you have to focus on stimulating and growing entrepreneurship and innovation in your company in various ways. Talent strategies need to evolve, especially with all the AI trends coming up. And last but not least, please see transformation as an ongoing process, not a one-off project. If we then move on, we have also insights from what do organizations do differently, the ones especially who seem to be quite successful in digital transformation. So we've talked about the barriers to digital transformation and key challenges many of them face. The ones that actually break through these barriers and succeed, they do a few things differently. I think 3 things are important to highlight. They build capabilities at the right time. That's number 1. So instead of seeing training, for example, as a one-time event, they develop structured learning pathways that they align throughout their transformation journey. Secondly, they use execution frameworks, not just strategies. Many organizations have a strategy, but they fail in the execution part. So having the right playbooks, the right guidance, and focus on what to do when, using, for example, execution frameworks is crucial there. And thirdly, they apply practical tools to make sure that the right capabilities are built and that certain concepts are actually realized at scale. And that makes the digital transformation become more sustainable, leading to sustainable change over time, if you will. So in short, the difference I would say between organizations that struggle and the ones who don't, and the ones who actually thrive, isn't just the ambition. It's about having the right capabilities, the right frameworks and tools to execute your transformation effectively. But this brings us on the next slide to, well, DASA and how we position ourselves. We actually provide a structured approach to help enterprises to build the right skills, leadership, and operational frameworks they need for their digital transformations. We're an industry body. We position ourselves as a go-to partner for enterprises who would like to become what we call high-performance digital organizations. And when we started, we focused a lot on certifications, and as you will see, we also transformed ourselves over the past years and focus a lot more on the execution frameworks, the guidance that is needed for implementing the right know-how and concepts at large in the various organizations. And this makes us a powerful organization that is not just focusing on training like some others do, or just R&D like some analyst firms do, or focus just on implementation support like most consulting companies do, but it's a combination which makes it, I think, very powerful and potentially very valuable to you as well. And to highlight how this works, on the next slide, we have drawn a visual that shows our ecosystem, because we believe in digital transformations and that they require more than just single initiatives, like I said. You need an ecosystem of capabilities, expertise, and collaboration. And that's why we have a very strong DNA around community and collaboration at DASA. What you see here is a few key entities that we highlight in our ecosystem. So for government organizations and enterprises, they typically leverage DASA frameworks to develop high-performance digital teams and core capabilities to make their digital transformation successful. We also have transformation partners. They work with those enterprises, who are typically their clients, to implement and scale transformation across teams, making sure that those best practices are actually embedded in the right way into those organizations. We also have accredited training providers, ATPs, who help develop the right skills, do skill building at those same enterprises. That's what their core business model is about. And last but not least, we have a global community within DASA of leaders and subject matter experts who provide continuous guidance, instill knowledge sharing and stimulate that, and also support to ensure that those transformations are actually successful. And one specific role in that ecosystem with among our community of leaders and subject matter experts is the role that Lawrie plays as a valued ambassador in our ecosystem. So this ecosystem ensures that organizations don't have to navigate transformations alone. They can leverage the know-how that DASA has accrued over time. They can get expert guidance, and they can team up and learn from peers in the ecosystem as they see fit. And on the next slide, I just highlighted a few examples of organizations who have already benefited from this. This is just as let's say a selection, but it shows, I think, based on the probably well-known brands that you will recognize, that DASA has made more and more impact over the past decade. And we're very proud of that. Some are partners, some are members, but all those organizations have leveraged the DASA body of knowledge to grow their own capabilities and help their clients with it as well. So when we zoom in on the next slide on what are then key things to do if you would embark on your own digital transformation, I would say there are a few things you should focus on. These are 6 themes that we organize our portfolio around. I will not go through all of them right now, that each of them would deserve a follow-up session, I would say. But it's important to notice that it's a mix between what you can call people, process, technology, leadership topics. And it's not compulsory to only focus on one or start at the top and do them all at the same time. Like I said, it's about finding your unique mix, depending on your status quo and your ambition. Many organizations over time will benefit from a combination between these themes. Just focusing on modernizing your IT infrastructure, for example, with next level cloud solutions will not bring you that far. Just focusing on leadership and culture, neither. Only focusing on creating high performance teams and neglecting traditional portfolio management processes or the complex IT landscapes that will hinder agility and acceleration will also be suboptimal. So that's why a combination of these capabilities makes most sense. Now, on the next slide, I summarize what it would be a typical way to go about this. Because like I said, doing it all at once as a big upfront design project is not so smart. We see organizations often go through 3 stages of maturity. In an early stage, they invest a lot in foundational skills, awareness, key concepts. It will break down your silos and think about the first lesson around organizational structure. It will allow your colleagues to benefit from agile DevOps principles and practices, leveraging the latest insights from IT modernization, etc. In then the scaling stage, you can expand certain capabilities that will help you to get faster and do it also more at scale. More specific AI capabilities, next level platform automation, governance frameworks come in play there. And in the leadership stage, to sustain high performance, it becomes more and more important not just to rely on a few forerunners or leaders, but to invest in also leadership skills at scale, to invest in even more cross-functional teams, involve more and more business lines, departments, parts of the organizations where normally you would otherwise start maybe in the IT domain. And this is a way to split your digital transformation efforts in logical brackets and phases where you can also gain value and share successes over time. And while doing so, you can benefit from all kinds of capabilities that you can build leveraging the various DASA know-how. On the next slide, we have shown an overview of the key capability programs, the key certification programs that we have in our portfolio. We have, based on our fundamentals program, which is often the starting point for many individuals and organizations to build the right frame of reference and the foundational skills, we have all kinds of core enabling capabilities that you could go about. For example, when it's from a technology and acceleration perspective, you can focus on site reliability engineering, platform engineering, what we call intelligent continuous security, etc., etc. And of course, AI is playing a role in all these programs, but we have also a dedicated AI solution that focuses on how to best benefit from adopting AI principles and practices in your whole software development lifecycle. That's the Dev AI Ops program. But we also have capability programs focusing on non-technical subjects which are important to make sure that you make the investments in the right place and define what delivers the most value for your customers and your users. This is the realm of product and portfolio management. If you want to go one step further, experience management is a topic to really check out as well. And we have supported supportive programs that help drive those digital transformations as well. From a leadership perspective, for example, we have a leadership and a coach program that can be very instrumental to build the right capabilities in your own ranks, to have more people who are able to actually connect the dots and shape the next phase of your own digital transformation. So what we see many organizations and our partners do is smartly combining those different types of elements, almost like ingredients, to build their own nice meal and recipe. But this is mostly skill building, and this is an important step often. But we have learned that it's very important to also, in addition to skill building, focus on how to guide the execution. On the next slide, we focus on the concept of what we call value boxes, because we have seen that many organizations struggle to translate what they learn from a typical training program, certification program, and translate those concepts into real execution, because they lack, let's say, clear frameworks to guide them with, the practical tools to actually learn by doing, understand the concepts better in their own context, and also guidance to actually help them decide what to do when. This is exactly what DASA value boxes provide. We have proven frameworks in them, like all kinds of playbooks derived from good practices of winning organizations. We have all kinds of practical tools like templates and all kinds of guidance papers that can describe what you do, what could you do best in what point in time. And with productized workshops and current state assessments and other guidance products, we have typically all the ingredients captured in the box that provide you to actually turn skills into execution. So this is a very powerful addition that we started building a few years back, in addition to the, well, let's say the renowned certification programs that DASA was known for in the past. And to summarize the power of those two, on the next slide, I highlight that combination, because I believe strongly that if you want to nail your digital transformation initiatives, you need to do both talent development and use transformation enablers. And that's how we design them. Like I said, from a people, process, and technology perspective. So it's never only one of the three, but we provide you with all the tools that you need. And there's a lot to say of all the various examples and the product suites that we have built around this. We don't have the time today to go to all at length, but I just want to quickly show you a few pictures to give you the gist of it. There are 3 examples on this. In this first example, you see our product suite around product management. On the left, you see some key topics that are covered in the 2-day certification program that we have created, and it is available in both a classroom and in a virtual version and in a self-paced format. And as you will see, it's much more than what a traditional product owner training would cover. It's really about building a product-centric mindset and model at large in your enterprise, focusing on everything from product strategy to product operations. And in the value box, we have all kinds of useful guidance assets that will help you to not just assess what your current maturity and ambitions are, but also to instill the right behavior and build the right capabilities in your teams, in your organization. And this has proven to be a powerful mix, as many of our partners have found out over the past 2 years. And something similar you can do for all kinds of product suites. On the next slide, we have something similar for platform engineering, which is more technology, cloud-related topic, most of you will think of, and that is true. But we are not here to just talk about technology. As you see here, we cover things like how to get stakeholder buy-in, what to do from a leadership perspective to identify your ideal platform strategy, how to also measure the return on investments to make sure that it's not just a very costly way of dealing with your IT infrastructure, how to assess the readiness and the maturity in your organization. And even with a decision tree, we can help you, we can guide you in the implementation phase. So this is just to give you some understanding of how the various DASA products can be very handy for you in your own journey. And last but not least, we have the Dev AI Ops product suite that shows not just the very fancy latest insights on what is the newest LLM that you can leverage. It's about also how to adopt it throughout the whole life cycle. It's about how to deal with governance and compliance when you go for AI capabilities, how to make sure that you adopt a continuous improvement mindset, how to calculate the costs, because this can easily go out of hand if you don't watch out. So again, useful assets, I would say, that can guide you in your organization. And that brings me to my last slide. So bear with me. I think it's good to emphasize that also DASA's adoption has grown significantly over the years. We're very proud to give you 2 examples in here that highlight this. One is that in a new IT service management ISO standard that came out last year, the DASA DevOps principles that we identified in 2016 and are still very relevant and useful to date have been adopted in this new ISO standard, which I think shows about the strength and the application power of our, let's say, our key concepts and our vision on guiding transformations. Another great example, this is even more recent. At the moment, there's in the Netherlands a large multi-year IT training RFP sent to all kinds of consulting and training parties. Many of them are DASA partner, by the way. And this is the first time that they actually adopted the DASA certification programs as a mandatory part of the required skill building. So partners who respond to this RFP need to show how they are able to actually also deliver the right know-how and skill building through DASA trainings, which is, I think, a good example of how we are spreading our influence. And it would be, of course, great to explore with you guys how can we make a similar impact in the Australia context. With that being said, Lawrie, back to you.
Thank you very much, Rik. I do appreciate that. And that's a really interesting point that probably 25, 30 years ago, I don't know whether Ian McDermott is on the line, but it's exactly where the gap where we saw in Australia was in portfolio and program management. And I feel that Australia does take and does accept and value this sort of other expertise that comes in. Thanks for running through that. Just the next slide, Jessica, and then we're going to just do a little bit of a wrap up there. And there are some couple of questions that have come in. I suppose to think about what Rik said, I really like that ecosystem slide on the left. And you can see that on my left hand, I had the thing about we got this ecosystem that has been developed and modified. And all of you tonight represent each part of that ecosystem in your own way. And on the right, we have our national strategy and implementation plan. And I hope you could see that as the last 2 years were evolving, I could map very easily some of the offerings that DASA has developed. It's not just a certification program. It's really interesting to see the value boxes. And I do appreciate the value boxes because it's not just offering templates, and you also encourage other ways that people might like to consider. It is that non-proprietary approach that I think is something that will gain acceptance in this market. Next slide, please, Jessica. So a couple of slides. It is something that is happening. We are seeing that there's a big demand on organisations that already I see are having digital transformation projects or programs of work of which they'll have capabilities. They're mirroring their national strategy. We would like you to if this is the first exposure you've had with DASA, please continue to have a look at the website. We've only just touched on some of the self-assessment tools that are out there at the moment. The original competency assessment tool is great for teams. What are some of the skills you need in a DevOps team? I've already guided a couple of people on some of those resources that exist there. The digital readiness assessment is quite good for you to have a look at. I'm also thinking if you are there trying to consult and trying to impart knowledge to your clients, this is a great value add. also have a look at some of the skills and frameworks. If I was managing a large group of consultants and contractors, I couldn't wish for a better place for them to seek out online training and increase their skills. And the last slide for me, thanks, Jessica. I will be following up. There are some great one-on-one briefings. Please come and have a chat to me. I am a volunteer on this. I do work full time, but I do have opportunities. It seems that I'm now working back in Canberra, as part of Canberra, where every time I walk around the block, I bump into someone. As of this morning, I bumped into another person. But I do want to talk to you about how I think this can help your business and help you position how you can potentially win more business using the national strategy. Now, Jessica's on the Jessica. I've only mentioned a national strategy. Other states like New South Wales have a very, very good. So there's another Jessica that was on the line. So yes, have a very good strategy. I haven't touched on New South Wales, and I haven't touched Brian on Queensland. I'm sure that if we wanted, I could help you map. If Queensland had a digital strategy, just as I know New South Wales has a very advanced one, we could easily map what DASA could have to offer. I also would like to think that, if you wouldn't mind, I'd like to maybe bring this group together, and that word industry reference group, but it is important for us to feed back to DASA. In the previous areas of the working groups, people ask me, why do I do it? I'm a volunteer, and at 2 a.m. in the morning, when we're talking about value boxes versus benefits management, my wife thinks that I, need to be questioned, but I'm there because I also enjoy the fact that you've got 7 different people from different countries all giving their perspective. That's what I think DASA has provided to me. Why do I do it? I do it because I could see a gap happening between portfolio and program management and this approach. And I think we can bring it. The job that we have to do is harmonise this together. I particularly like the Australian strategy. I think we should be incredibly proud of it. And I hope tonight you've seen that there are some other steps and stories that we can use and help you in your own business. Just the last slide there, please. I've got 2 questions that I do want to cover. Jessica, just the next one. If there are any questions, please write any questions, Jessica, before I raise to the 2 that were raised. Anyone raise any questions, or off your microphone, please? Anything, Jessica, there?
Nothing so far in the chat, but
okay.
Any, or raise your hand and we can call on you.
Raise your hands. Well, until that happens, I've got 2 questions that were raised. Lawrie, we see there's a DASA SRE Next Generation Certification Program and a DASA DevAI certification program. When did these come on the market, and how do they align with other AI type courses? What's different? It's a very good question. I think you're about to release another product this afternoon, aren't you, your time?
Yeah, if I may, I think it's a good question. We have for each of the product suites we design and develop, we look carefully at what are the trends and how to make our total suite as future-proof as possible. And nowadays, that means, of course, that we also heavily focus on what AI can bring. There are basically 3 things that we do with AI from a DASA perspective. On the one hand, we have dedicated AI product suites, the most important one being DevAIOps at the moment. I highlighted it quickly in the talk. And it's unique compared to other programs, I'd say, because we focus not just on the technology and the models itself, but also on the ethics part, the governance, the leadership dimensions, how to embed this properly and at scale in your organization to optimally benefit from it. Secondly, the second pillar would be that we build AI in all our products. And we have started doing the latest releases, as you mentioned, Lawrie. So we have site reliability engineering as a concept coined by Google 2 decades ago, which is very important and still very valuable. But with our SRE Next Gen approach, we not only focus on sustainability and some other key trends that have surfaced over the past 2 decades, but also the AI opportunities that you have if you monitor and build reliability capabilities in your IT organization. So this is another example of this is one example of how we make sure that other programs have enough, let's say, AI fuel in them. The same goes for intelligent continuous security that we will indeed launch in the near future. It's not about DevSecOps and security elements alone in splendid isolation. Also there to combat and to deal with all the, let's say, the attackers and all the risks you face as an enterprise around cybersecurity. How can you benefit from intelligence, which is often AI-driven capabilities? So that's the second pillar, I would say, to build AI in all product suites, and we're constantly doing that. And the third pillar would be something that warrants a separate session, but we also have built our own agentic AI platform that can be very interesting for everyone working with DASA and like to get access to and smartly apply the body of knowledge.
Okay, so that is I know it's a really work in progress. Just one other quick question that came in. Person noted about, could you ask Rik, with the transformation partner membership, if I wanted to offer this to my specialist consultants or contractors as part of a training incentive or benefit, what are the scales of membership? Is it an entry level with a maximum of people? The premium level can accommodate white people? Without going into just to give us an idea of what that membership is about.
Yeah,
thank you.
So for transformation partners, the main reason to partner with us is, of course, equip themselves to make more impact at their clients and helping those clients with digital transformation. So that often involves a lot of partnering with DASA on go-to-market. We can help with business development. We can share our network, and we can also guide those consultants and specialists at their client projects. But another large part is, of course, the internal capability building. So the consultants needing to invest in the know-how first before they can actually leverage it for their clients, of course. And we make it as easy as possible and a low threshold as possible, I would say. We have different tiers. The main difference is the size of the wallet you get. So there's a number of credits in the wallet that are associated with the membership tier. And from that wallet amount, you can pick and choose and smartly decide yourself in what capabilities will you invest first. And often there's directly a business case associated to it, because if you would like to invest in platform engineering, for example, or Dev AI Ops, you of course have a plan, and we can help you with that to actually monetize this at your clients at the same time.
So I think, and I just my experience in that, how that's evolved, that particular transformation partner thing is, it's gone from a set number of people to, well, you've got amount of credits and let's work out what you could do. And I think what I'd like to do is help anyone in Australia really focus using the national strategy on where they think they can make the biggest mark. So I think it will work nicely.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's all the questions I've got. Sorry, yes, Rik? Yes?
Oh, that does make perfect sense.
Yeah.
But because doing everything at the same time, like doing transformations, is less smart, I would say. Yeah.
Exactly. Now we've run out of time, but Jessica, any other questions or anyone had their hand up before we close?
Not that I can see, so.
Excellent. Well, I just want to... Excellent. Can I just thank a couple of people? Jessica, it's not easy being on the end and having a time difference putting this. And I'd like everyone to just show the appreciation for Jessica. We've had spam filters. We've had everything. We had 20 odd people here. Thank you so much, Jessica. Thank you, Rik. Thanks for the time and effort that you place in. Thank you for the way that you explain it. You know, you can see the experience come through, and we do. And also, Sukpa, thank you for the confidence in keeping an ag scientist on as a volunteer for 7 years. And I'm not retired yet, but I want everyone to know that I'm very proud to be this role, because there are a lot of lessons that we can use. So with that, with no further ado, I'd like to thank everybody, wish you a good evening, a good day, and thank you for attending. Copies will be sent out, I believe. Jessica, is that correct?
Yes. Yep. We'll have recording, the slide deck, everything, so we can send that out. And
excellent. Okay. So, thank you very much, everybody. Have a nice
Lawrie.
evening.
Thanks, Rik. Thanks, Jess.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Yes.